Hey guys, Rich here from Touch Loops. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to be looking at recreating the sounds of the iconic Texan three-piece band Khruangbin. They're renowned for their vintage tones and their 70s psychedelic sound, so we're going to look at how we can do that within Ableton. So in this video, we're going to cover how to make your guitars sound like the band. We're going to look at vintage mixing styles, creating an analog style DAW, if you will. And we're also going to look at how you can implement these ideas into your band as well. So processing your drums in certain ways, using spring reverbs, using delays, just to get that classic 70s psychedelic feel. What we'll do is we'll spin through the session first, just so you can see the layout of it and how I've done it. I like using auxiliary channels in Ableton to kind of create a virtual desk, and then we'll cut away to the pedals that I used and also the guitar amps. I thought it was pretty important to show you my effects chain in the real world, and then we'll also recreate that virtually within Ableton. First off, let's have a listen to what we've got. What we're going to do is we're going to start by looking at the way I have my session laid out. So these are just normal audio channels that I've made. And then what I'm doing is I'm routing things into it. So you can see this one called drums aux, as you see my drums being sent to the drum aux. As you can see, each one has, apart from Trackspacer, identical things on it. So if we look at the drum group, I've got a tape machine first, because Khruangbin playing on that 60s and 70s and a little bit later style would have all been tape. Like all the bands that they've been influenced would be tracking to tape, because there was no Pro Tools, there was no Ableton, there were no DAWs. So I want the sound of tape on every single channel. That's the same all the way through. I've then gone into a channel strip, which is from Slate Digital, going into a virtual channel. So that's kind of trying to recreate the harmonic character you might get from a desk. So if it's overloading, then that's the kind of thing. I've gone for a Brit 4K, so I'm looking at an SSL style desk, and I've gone for an SSL EQ, and then this is based on the SSL bus compressor as well. So I thought, let's pretend we're mixing through an SSL, and these are going to be the settings that I'm going to use. So each channel will have an identical channel, compressor, EQ. So they're all picking up that same kind of like tonal characteristics, helping to glue everything together a little bit. And you'll notice even on the effects, it's exactly the same. Then if we go down to the master, got an EQ, just rolling off the bottom, taking out a little bit of low mid, nothing too exciting. Again, tape machine, I want that cohesion. Compressor, again, based on the SSL style bus compressor. I was like, let's keep the theme going. Virtual mix rack. Got an EQ, slightly different EQ, but it still has the characteristics of an analog EQ, so it's living in that world that we're trying to build. Mix bus, this is their version of the kind of central console, if you will, of a desk. So we've got all these like separate channels mixing into the final section, which is here. Then I'm just going into a limiter at the end that's just catching things, so it's not doing anything too exciting. This idea of creating fake analog, it's obviously in the box, out of the box. Whether you prefer either way doesn't really matter. It's all about writing good music. But I think it's cool for getting those tones and those kind of characters of saturation and vibe. And this type of music really lends itself nicely to it. It's not really about polish and precision. It's about vibe and style and effects. And that's what this allows me to do. Okay, so up first, let's look at the drums. I'm going to try and recreate the sound of a band by doing this, but clearly on my own. So it made sense to choose drums which already are from this world and been processed in the right way. That's why I'm going to reach for our vintage drum loops. They were cut to tape. They've been recorded in mono, which is something you'd traditionally find in the 60s and 70s. And they've already been processed to have the right tones that we're looking for. There's no point picking a modern sounding drum kit to try and get us something that's vintage. We'll be working too hard, and there's no reason to do that. Let's have a listen to what we've got. Cool, okay, so they sound great straight off the bat with minimal processing. You'll have noticed as the track was playing, there were a few little moments where you heard delay sends and little dub moments. Now that's a trick that Khruangbin use all the time. So what I've done is I've used automation sends to throw the drums and the snare, in this particular case, into my effects, so we get that dub reggae classic delay vibe. If we just check the send, it's going to the Spring reverb. Again, it's hammering home that 60s, 70s style, and they loved Springs back in the day. And then if we check out, we've got a few more going to our other delay effects. One thing that's worth noting as well is I like to feed things back into each other. I feel if there's something dry like a delay, it really should have some reverb on it. And I'm like, well, why don't I use the reverbs and the delays that are already within my session? So as you can see, I turn these on and I send this back. So my ping pong delay is going back into the Spring reverb, and it's also going into the Space Echo a little bit. So you get these softer feelings with a lot more cohesion, which really ties in with the vibe of it all. So if we move down, so that's our main drums. We've got one shots, which I've also pulled from the vintage pack. So these are their crashers. Again, we go into effects because we want to have that dub vibe. I've also got a snare hit as well, which I thought I'd reinforce that first downbeat snare. So let's have a look at that. We've used the AudioThing Spring, and this is based on, I mean, somebody tell me, I'm guessing some old 80s Spring unit at the look of it. But what I like about this plugin is it gives us options. We've got the short and long, which reminds us of using a Space Echo. It's also got a dry feature, it's got wet and dry, it's got stereo width, and I thought with this being the spot effects, let's just go big, let's kind of like go as wide as possible, and let's listen to it with and without. Pretty massive. Let's hear it with the effect. Way more dub, way more rolled off, way more vibey, and ties in beautifully with what we're looking for. So there are live drums. As you can see on the verse section, if you will, I wanted to go for this kind of like abstract drum machine, weird world that they live in, and thought, let's pull some classic drum machine loops, and why not? As you can see, I've built a bit of a weird chain on it, but what we can do is we can go through it one at a time so you can see my reasoning and what we ended up with. So if we group this together in Ableton, Command G, I can turn them all off, we can listen to it without any effects. So this drum loop was pulled from our Ultimate Drum Machines pack, potentially Drum Machine Anthology. I'll put a link to everything. I'll also, I'm going to create a mini sample pack from this session, guys. So feel free to head over to the blog and it'll be there for you to download for free, just so you can try out these channels, try out these effects. I'll also throw in the Ableton session as well, so you can lay things out. And if you want to steal my ideas for how to use the drum orcs and the bass orcs and things, you're more than welcome to dig in. So when I listen to the drum loop, instantly I'm hearing this washed out kind of phasey, flangey hi-hat effect. Straight away, that's putting me in the correct world. Like, that's where I want to live, but I want to accentuate that. So what I've done is I've built this pretty bonkers chain, and let's add them one at a time. And it also gives me a chance to talk about a few plugins that I like. Auto pan, because I wanted weirdness. So we've got some nice panning left and right, nothing too much, but just to add a little bit more of that psychedelic feel, because we're going for that weirdness. Phaser flanger. Again, really hammering home the story. EQ, I've completely got rid of the bottom end because I found it was clashing with the kick pattern. And I've rolled off a little bit of the top because, again, it was clashing with my hats. If I play them together, you'll be able to hear this. Cool, I've got a side chain, which is just ducking out from the kick. As you can see, I don't have a separate kick, I just have a drum channel. So what the Ableton compressor allows me to do in the side chain is add the EQ here. As you can see, roll off at 200, so it's mainly picking up the kick, a little bit of the snare. You can see it ducking out. Predominantly kick, 95% kick, which is great. I've then also got springs on the end because I wanted to really get it in that world even more, and it'll be spiking because, as you can see, these bigger hits are going to be hitting the spring harder. This is based on, I really don't know what that is, some kind of pipe, but it sounds great, I don't care. What's great about that is we've got our drums panning from left to right. We've got our flanger also adding some really cool movement, but then we've got full stereo width on our reverb. So we're kind of getting this left, right, phasey, flangey effect, but at the same time, because it's so wide on the reverb, it almost softens the panning a little bit. So when it's left and we get a big spike and we get a big hit, we still get some information on the right hand side. So it makes the mix sound incredibly 3D, which I love. The last plugin that I've added here, which I've saved to last, is one called Trackspacer, which is something I came across recently. As you can see, I've set the sidechain input to be drums, and by drums I mean it's our main grooving beat from the Vintage Drum Loops pack. Let's have a little look inside. So what we're looking at here is a type of sidechain, basically. What's really cool is when we play it, you'll see the sound of the drums coming in, which is this one here. And then you'll also see that I've set these levels, which is saying I only want this area to be affected by the sidechain. So that's 1.1K and it's going up to 20. This is the amount, so I'll leave it off. So as I brought the amount up, what's really interesting is that it started to show reduction just in these higher frequencies, which is incredibly useful. I was having slight issues with the hi-hats clashing with the drum machine loop that I brought in. This was an amazing way of ensuring these two things don't get in the way of each other. So every time the hi-hat starts to play, it's ducking out the drum machine. As the hi-hats stop, the drum machine slightly becomes louder. I was okay with the stuff in the middle, that can remain, didn't want to affect that, hence I've got these filters set. So we can see that in action again. So yeah, really cool. Obviously the white line represents our drum machine, the other line represents the sidechain. So on top of that, we've got a percussion loop, which is from another pack, which is a ride pattern, so we can listen to that. So really nice, works well with the arrangement. As you can see, I've gone for this intro section without that. Then I've switched to bring in the ride as you would. You could argue that if you're playing a hi-hat in that style, you probably wouldn't be playing the ride at the same time, but I don't really care. I think it sounds great. It just does exactly what I want it to, and it makes things a little bit more 3D, and it feels like we're progressing. So we switch to the chorus, drums change to a different drum beat. So as you can hear, lots of cool little spot mic, little moments, little stabs and things. Then we come into this section which I call a vamp, which is just a looping rhythm. We switch in the drum groove. We're keeping the drum groove the same, but then we're reintroducing this because the whole track's on a bit of a wind down. This is before we go to the break. You'll then see we've got some pretty wild automation going off here. So what's happening? Our filter's coming down because we want to be talking about the break section. So as you can see, we've got it set to frequency, it's going down, a little bit of resonance, we can listen to that. Cool. So what we've got is we've got filters going down, and this is something I love to do, just to add some drama and effect. Whilst the filter's going down, you can see we've also got these automation marks going up. This is cool because we're starting to lose top-end information from our drums, but we're also sending things to delays. So as the filter's coming down, you're almost hearing a later version of the hi-hats that were previously there, but in this filtered form. It reveals the drum machine groove a lot more, which is excellent, and shows progress. And then also we've got a shaker underneath, which is just plodding along. Again, that's just side chaining out. We can have a listen to that. Not doing anything too special, just plodding along. Again, a little bit of spring reverb because I want everything to live in that world. Obviously, it's all being sent to the aux group as well. The last thing in the drums are these little fills, and they signify change, I suppose. So this one's building up into the chorus, and the same goes to this one. You can see it's just before the chorus. So we can have a listen to that. So as you can hear, there's some effects going off, and it's all based around Outer Space from AudioThing. This is a plugin I love, and everybody who works at the company are the same, basically. We all adore space echoes, love everything from, that kind of time period. I've been lucky enough to use some over the years. Don't currently own one, but this just does a great job. So let's have a look at what's happening. We can watch the dials move, so we'll know there's automation. Cool, so we're pushing intensity high every time there's a drum fill. I've also, you can see, got panning from right to left. Again, playing on the psychedelia idea, we just want to be messing around with the stereo field, making things interesting. As you can see, I wanted to create this small break, so I thought, why not have this fill here, add a little bit of drama, enjoy the tail from the delay, and then it'll obviously roll off into the chorus to add a little bit more extra whack, if you will.